At the birthday banquet, my parents brought out the gift they had prepared for me, a paternity test proving we were not biologically related. Mom smiled coldly, Yufeng. Since you aren't our biological son, you'll have to pay us back for the cost of raising you. These past 17 years, Dad scoffed. No wonder you look nothing like me. You freeloaded off the Lee family for years. From today on, you are a servant in this house. You'll get 500 yuan a month to pay off your debt, and that doesn't cover food or lodging. I didn't cry or make a scene. I just nodded calmly after all. Last night, I stood by the door and heard it with my own ears. My younger brother was holding our parents' hands, acting spoiled and sweet. Mom, Dad, my birthday wish is to be the only child of the Lee family and have all your love to myself. Let my brother be a servant for a year, please. Dad's face was full of doting love. All right, whatever you want. Mom chimed in with a smile. For this year, Mom and Dad belong only to our Yushu. Leaning against the wall, my eyes burned with unshed tears. They didn't remember that my brother and I were twins. We shared the same birthday, and my birthday wish was to leave the Lee family. Not for a year, but forever. My brotherly Yushu covered his mouth in a mock gasp. Brother, no wonder. You're so ugly you don't look like Dad or Mom. Turns out you're a fake, he shouted loudly and theatrically, as if he had completely forgotten that we were twins and looked 70 to 80% alike. Oh wait, you're not my brother at all. You're just some bastard from who knows where. Mom's expression was distant and cold. Yufeng, since the truth is out, and you aren't a child of our Lee family, you have no right to attend this banquet. We prepared it solely for our precious son Yushu. I looked up at Yushu's smug face. He was wearing a custom-tailored suit and a watch on his wrist, worth a mansion. Then I looked at myself in a faded, washed-out shirt and jeans with frayed cuffs. I smiled bitterly. The right to be here. It was something I never had growing up. So how could I lose it? Dad raised his voice. Starting today, move to the servants' quarters. For the sake of the father-son bond we once shared, you can work as a servant here until you find your biological parents. I'll give you 500 a month. No food or board included to pay back your upbringing costs. The guests murmured among themselves like a pathetic clown. Under their mocking and ridiculing gazes, I bent down and picked up my backpack. Yushu dashed over and violently yanked my bag. The broken zipper, held together only by a safety pin, burst open. My belongings spilled all over the floor. Yushu yelled, "Aha! I knew what you've been stealing from us." Amidst the scattered books lay a small packet of tissues. Mom looked a bit uncomfortable. Yushu, let it go, it's just a pack of tissues. Yushu immediately protested. Mom, I'm the only child of the Lee family now. Who does he think he is? He's freeloaded off us for years, and now he's stealing from us. If I say he doesn't deserve it, he doesn't deserve it. Seeing him angry, Mom quickly coaxed him softly. All right. Don't be mad, my precious boy. You are absolutely right. You are Mom's only darling. Now you can do whatever you want. Satisfied, Yushu stomped heavily on the tissue pack, grinding his heel into it. There. I don't want it anymore. It's yours. I stared at the footprint-covered packet. My throat felt like it was stuffed with wet cotton, heavy and suffocating in the end. I bent down and only picked up my books. After the banquet, Aunt Zhang, the housekeeper, led me to a storage room. It was barely 50 square feet, holding only a wooden bed piled with clutter and a rusted iron window. Aunt Zhang stood at the door hesitating. Young Master Yufeng, the master and madam remember your goodness. Once they think things through, you'll be the young master of the Lee family again. Before she could finish, 2 cockroaches scurried out from a corner and darted away. I pretended not to notice her embarrassment. Thank you, I know. Aunt Zhang shook her head and left. She muttered under her breath. They look so much alike, how could they not be? Sigh. I sat on the wooden board bed, staring blankly into the pitch-black night outside the window. It didn't matter, just one more year, and I could leave forever. That night, I felt terribly ill. My back broke out in cold sweats. Coming out of the bathroom, I overheard my parents speaking in hushed voices. Honey, do you think Yufeng will hate us for treating him like this? He is our biological son after all. Dad scoffed. Who told him to always bully Yushu as an older brother? He never yields to his younger brother. Making him suffer is for his own good. In a year when Yushu has had his fun, we'll just use the excuse that the paternity test was a mistake. Once his status as the eldest son of the Lee family is restored, he'll be too thrilled to care. My fingertips went cold. It felt absurd and laughable. What made them think that after trampling me into the dirt, I would still obediently stand there waiting for them? The next day, I went out to buy medicine. When I tried to pay, I was told I had insufficient funds. But I had definitely saved up 200 yuan on my card. Pushing open the villa doors upon my return, I saw the three of them chatting and laughing at the dining table. There was a gift bag on the table. Mom was fondly stroking a silk scarf. Are you sure is truly Mom's sweetheart? He even knows how to buy gifts for me now. I'm so happy. Dad was turning a plastic water bottle in his hands. Grinning from ear to ear, Dad loves his gift too. Truly my precious son. Yushu leaned triumphantly against Mom's shoulder. But these two gifts only cost 200 yuan. You don't blame me for buying something so cheap, do you? Mom immediately shook her head. Of course not, as long as it's from my precious boy. Even if it cost 2 yuan, it would still be a treasure to me. Dad didn't forget to belittle me to comfort him. Exactly, not like your brother, who only knows how to spend our money. He's never bought us anything. He's just an ungrateful wretch, nothing compared to my Yushu. Noticing my return, they stopped talking. Yushu tilted his head and looked at me, his smile brimming with malice. That 200 yuan, it was my living expenses saved up over 2 months. It was all the money I had. A chill ran through my body. Something inside my brain violently snapped. By the time I realized what I was doing, I had grabbed Yushu and raised my hand. But before the slap could land, Dad kicked me away. My spine slammed against the sharp corner of the coffee table. The pain was so intense my vision went black. Holding up an arm with a tiny red mark, Yushu cried as if the sky were falling. Mom, Dad, it hurts so much. Is my arm broken? Mom screamed in panic. Call an ambulance. There's no time for an ambulance. Dad said hastily, I'll drive Yushu to the hospital. Yushu pointed at me lying on the floor. I don't want to take the car. This bastard hurt me. So I want him to carry me on his back all the way to the hospital. The nearest hospital in the city was 20 kilometers away from the villa. Mom looked at me with icy eyes. You little orphan, we fed and housed you for over a decade, and you dare lay a hand on my actual son. Do exactly as Yushu says. Seeing me unable to get up, Dad hauled me to my feet. Stop faking it. You just bumped yourself slightly. Hurry up and carry Yushu to the hospital. If you delay my son's treatment, I'll throw you out of the Li family entirely. I believed him, but I couldn't leave yet. I had no choice but to carry Yushu on my back, stumbling as I walked toward the hospital. Dad drove slowly, following right behind me. He constantly yelled out the window, Li Yufeng, you'd better carry him properly. If you drop my precious boy, I'll skin you alive. Mom frowned and complained. Walk faster, haven't you eaten? Don't delay my baby's treatment. Clinging to my back, Yushu smiled smugly. See that nobody in this house loves you. You're just an unwanted stray dog. Words like that used to sting easily, but now, perhaps because of the accumulated pain, I was numb to it all. Seeing my lack of reaction, Yushu went silent, but just as we were nearing the hospital, he took a safety pin from his pocket and viciously jammed it into my back. The sharp pain made me stumble, and I collapsed entirely onto the ground. My parents slammed on the brakes, parked on the curb, and sprinted over. They scooped up Yushu, who had fallen on top of me, and ran toward the hospital, trailing behind. Mom glanced back at my deathly pale face and tossed out impatiently. We're already at the hospital. Go find a doctor yourself. We don't have time for you. I never went inside the hospital because I had no money. With no strength left to walk back, I sat on the hospital steps until dark, before finally returning to the villa. They had already returned. Standing in the villa were a middle-aged man, cowering, and unkempt. You're just in time. Dad pointed at the couple. These are your biological parents. Leave with them right now. The air fell dead, silent. Mom walked over and took my hand, though she didn't dare meet my eyes. Yufeng, we've been mother and son for a long time. I'm sad too, but since your biological parents have been found, there's no reason for you to linger in the Li family. I thought I had no tears left to cry, but they still managed to wet my entire face. These were the parents I had cherished and prioritized for over a decade. Yet they weren't willing to let me stay in this house, not even in a small corner. Mom looked guilty seeing my tears. She reached out to wipe them away, but Yushu grabbed her arm. Congratulations, brother. You're finally not a bastard without parents anymore. Seeing this, the middle-aged woman rushed forward and grabbed my hand. Her dirt-caked nails dug into my skin as she began to wail dramatically. Oh, my son, Mom has finally found you. Hurry, come home with Mom. The man claiming to be my biological father dragged me toward the door. Yes, let's go home immediately. We've bothered Mr. and Mrs. Li for so many years. You can't be shameless and overstay your welcome. Wait, Yushu said, his eyes darting as he smiled gleefully. Brother, finding your real parents is a huge deal. It wouldn't be right if you didn't kneel and kowtow to acknowledge them. Or is it that you think they're too poor and secretly look down on them? I froze, turning to look at Mom and Dad. Do you also think I should kneel and kowtow to them? They instinctively avoided my gaze. Yushu kept urging hurry up, and Neil were all watching. I smiled, something inside me utterly shattered. In that moment, I dropped to my knees, but I kowtowed heavily toward Mom and Dad. Our bond as parents and child ends here. From now on, I have nothing to do with the Lee family. Mom and Dad exchanged a look, both catching a glimpse of unease in each other's eyes. But I had already stood up and left with my biological parents. Mom chased after me, shouting with false bravado, "We're not even not unless you pay back all the money spent on you over the past dozen years." I stopped walking but didn't look back. I simply gave a soft response, "Okay." They thought they had spent a lot of money on me over the years, but they forgot that the favored son, the one raised lavishly with immense amounts of money, was Yushu. As for me, I had a monthly allowance of only 300 yuan, and I was constantly extorted by Yushu, who received 30,000 a month. If I refused, he would go home and cry, claiming I rallied my classmates to isolate and bully him. I was locked in solitary confinement countless times and denied food, once on a night with torrential rain, just because Yushu claimed I was pushing him to the brink of suicide. I was left out in the downpour all night. I ran a fever of 104 degrees, and no one cared growing up. It was always like this: a single word from Yushu could dictate my right or wrong, my happiness, my life, and even my dignity, my defenses, my pain, my grievances. In this house, they were utterly worthless. Just like me, I came cheap. That night, I moved into my biological parents' rented room in the slums. Because there were no extra rooms or blankets, I had to curl up in the single bathroom for the night. The windows, patched with old newspaper, were drafted and broken, letting in continuous icy winds. The next day, I became dizzy and developed a high fever. In my delirium, I heard the woman frantically speaking on the phone. "Mr. Lee, Mrs. Lee, the young master has a high fever. It's already 104 degrees, then what are you waiting for? Send him to the hospital." The phone was on speaker. Yushu's voice came through clearly. "Mom, Dad, brother just left last night, and today he suddenly has a high fever. There's no such coincidence. It must be a trick to test you. If you believe it, you're falling for it." After a long silence, Dad's icy voice rang out. "Leave him be," he said it himself. "He has nothing to do with us anymore. Let that ungrateful wretch learn his lesson." Mom sounded thoroughly impatient. "He is your son, now stop calling us over nothing. We have to take our precious boy on a trip around the world." Hanging up, no one cared about me anymore. I was left to rot in that ignored rental room, desperately pulling the door open and crawling out into the hallway. I couldn't hold on any longer and blacked out. When I opened my eyes again, there was only a nurse by my bed. "Young man, you're finally awake. A 107-degree fever. If a kind passerby hadn't brought you in. Another 10 minutes, and you would have been in critical danger. All right, hurry and call your family over to pay the medical bills." I was silent for a long moment before replying softly, "I don't have money, and I don't have a family." The nurse was stunned. I stared at the 4 tube on the back of my hand and pursed my dry lips. "But I have blood." When school started, I entered my senior year. I began running errands for classmates, fetching meals and delivering packages. One run earned me 1 yuan. I could save up over 20 a day. One day, just as I had gotten my food and was leaving the cafeteria, I bumped into Yushu. He merely crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. His group of lackeys snatched my lunchbox and smashed it, the food mixed with the muddy water spilling everywhere. "Brother, seeing how pathetic you are, this meal is on me." They pressed my head down, forcing me to eat the food they had stomped on. My homeroom teacher, Miss Zia, happened to walk by and harshly reprimanded them. She pulled me up and helped wipe my face clean. She had heard a bit about what happened at the birthday banquet and knew I was short on money. Without asking too many questions, she introduced me to a tutoring job. The only condition was that it was just for half a day on weekends, and absolutely couldn't affect my grades. I thanked her profusely, but I never imagined that because of Miss Zia's single act of kindness, she would be reported and fired, under the false accusation of accepting bribes from parents. And I was exposed on the school's bulletin board. Because of a photo showing my student's parent picking me up, I was labeled as a kept boy. My biological mother, Jane Gahan, rushed to the school and without a word slapped me twice across the face. She viciously grabbed my hair, twisting and pinching me. "You little animal. barely of age, and already climbing into women's beds. You might not want your dignity, but I want mine. My face was knocked sideways. Through my peripheral vision, I caught sight of Mom and Dad standing with the school administrators, looking at me like I was trash, and behind them, Yushu grinning so hard his face could split. My untrimmed hair fell down, blocking my vision and hiding the tears I couldn't hold back. In time, I lowered my head and spoke calmly. I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. That night, right after I finished showering at home, a pair of large hands violently yanked me into a room. My biological father, Lou Dagging, shirtless and with bloodshot eyes, lunged at me. You little beast, going out to tutor, huh? Hand over all the money right now. I slashed at his face with the utility knife I had hidden in my sleeve. He was forced back a few steps, panting heavily like a starving beast. I'm still a student if you don't want to rot in prison. Back off living in the slums. I couldn't possibly be completely unprepared. Lou Dagon spat, wiping the blood from his face, and bared his yellow teeth in a sinister smile. You just fucking wait. Your parents sold you to me. Your money is my money. When the door slammed shut, I lost all my strength and slid to the floor. Trembling uncontrollably, tears poured down my face. I bit down hard on the back of my hand to keep from crying out loud. My phone pinged. A message popped up in the family group chat. Mom Li Yufan, you're so young, yet so depraved. To think I was mother to someone so filthy and devoid of self-respect. For over a decade, it makes me sick. A second later, Dad removed me from the group. Staring at the chat group that now only had 3 people, Mom felt a sudden, inexplicable surge of unease. Honey, did we go too far? Didn't we investigate and find out Yufeng was just tutoring? Dad said angrily if he hadn't forced Yushu to eat food off the floor. Yushu wouldn't have cried until his eyes swelled up. Yushu only asked us to kick him out of the group chat. He got off easy thinking it over. His tone softened anyway. It's only for a year. I've transferred enough money to Lou Dagon so you phone won't suffer. Once the time is up, we'll go pick him right back up. 1 year later, on the day of mine and Yushu's shared birthday, Mom and Dad left the house early. Dad drove fast. You brought the real paternity test, right? Mom nodded repeatedly. I brought it. We haven't seen Yufeng all year. Once he comes back, we absolutely have to make it up to him. Dad smiled. Of course. I've already divided up the company's shares. Yushu is too playful to handle major responsibilities. Yufeng must have matured after this trial and won't bully his brother anymore. At the banquet today, I'll announce him as the heir. The two hurriedly got out of the car, navigated the filthy, chaotic stairwell, and went straight to Lou Dagon's apartment. But they knocked for a long time and no one answered. Finally, an older woman from next door poked her head out. Stop knocking. Lou Dagon stabbed that boy he brought back a year ago. He was locked up a long time ago. The hallway became dead silent. After a long time, Dad, his face pale as a sheet, finally found his violently trembling voice. Did Lou Dagon bring several boys home a year ago? The woman clicked her tongue, instantly shattering his illusions. What's several? Just one. He said the boy was his long-lost son that he finally found. Yes, it's his son. Mom interrupted, her voice shrill. It's his son. How could he lay a hand on his own son? There must be a mistake. It seemed Mom thought that if she spoke loudly enough, she could cover up the truth laid bare before her. But the neighbor didn't buy it and scoffed openly. What son? Everyone around here knows Lou Dagging is impotent, and he's got a terrible temper. Before that kid came along, he beat his wife every single day. He claimed the boy was his long-lost son. But look at how ugly he and Zhang Gahong are. As if they could give birth to such a handsome boy. He definitely conned the kid from somewhere. Seeing that the couple was dressed expensively, the woman tried to curry favor, winking and gossiping with even more vigor. You wouldn't know, but the soundproofing here is terrible. The night Lou Dagging was taken away, the whole building heard that poor boy crying and screaming. It was absolutely tragic. Mom stumbled back 2 steps, the world spinning around her as she grabbed the railing. A severe germaphobe, she didn't even notice the filthy railing, smearing thick grime all over her hand. With a blank, dazed face, she muttered lifelessly, impossible. It's a lie. It has to be a lie. The woman waved her hand. I wouldn't dare lie. Just ask anyone in this building. That boy hadn't even been here a few days before. Lou started punching and kicking him. He's a complete monster, she described it vividly, entirely oblivious to the couple's increasingly ghastly pallor. Dad, who was always so resolute and commanding in the business world, now had his tall frame shaking like a leaf in the wind. It took every ounce of his strength just to steady his weakening legs. Where's the boy now, Sai? Don't even bring it up, the woman lamented. Right after Lou Dagon was arrested, the kid jumped out of the building. He looked like a student so clean and bright, completely ruined by that animal. Who knows whose son he was? If his parents knew, their hearts would break into pieces. Having finished her story, the neighbor looked at their soul-crushed faces and finally sensed something was off. I mean, that kid wasn't your son. Was he? No. No, Dad denied frantically. We're just passing through. Looking as if he'd seen a ghost, he supported Mom and practically fled. While exiting the stairwell, he nearly tripped over a pile of trash. They didn't say a single word until they were inside the car. After an unknown amount of time, suppressed sobs broke out. Mom covered her face, finally breaking down into hysterical wails. My Yufeng, my son. Suddenly, she grabbed her purse and started beating Dad with it like a madwoman. It's all your fault, all of it. If it weren't for your rotten idea to let a disgusting thing like Lu Dagon take my Yufeng, none of this would have happened. My baby, my son. Give me my Yufeng back. Dad sat there pale like a soulless puppet, letting her hit him. Not until Mom exhausted herself and collapsed onto the center console, howling in agony. Only then did he reach out with a trembling hand to make a phone call. The black Bentley parked outside the police station. The police officer flipped through the files and quickly recalled the year-old case. Lu Dagon was brought in the middle of the night. We don't know the boy's exact situation. We heard he jumped off a building and was taken away by someone. We didn't handle the follow-up, so we aren't sure. Mom frantically grabbed the officer's hand. Is the boy dead or alive? The officer shook his head. The officer in charge of this case a year ago has been transferred to the South City branch. You can contact their station for the specifics. He paused mid-sentence and asked cautiously, what is your relationship to the boy? Dad's face was ashen. He spoke softly. Parents, every officer in the room raised their heads, looking over in sheer disbelief. Indeed, their biological son was beaten, abused, and jumped off a building. Who could have imagined that his biological parents would only learn about it a whole year later and show up so belatedly to ask? Mom and Dad lowered their heads. The overwhelming shame and regret washed over them like a tidal wave, nearly drowning them. Dad's voice was terribly hoarse. I request a visitation with Lu Dagon. The paperwork was processed quickly through the glass partition. Lu Dagon excitedly grabbed the phone. Mr. Lee, are you here to get me out? Dad stared at him icily. Where is my son? Lu Dagon was stunned. Your son? Didn't you text me, saying you didn't want the little bastard and gave him to me? You even specifically said I could beat him and curse at him however I wanted. Beside him, Mom snatched the phone like a mad woman, her eyes wide with rage. You're lying. That's my son, my baby. How could we not want him? Lu Dagon, we gave you $5 million just so you would take good care of him for a year, and you dared to. I won't let you get away with this. I will never let you get away with this. Lu Dagon looked from Dad's livid face to Mom's bloodshot eyes. He finally realized what was happening, and his face turned white as paper. He knew that with Dad's power, keeping him locked up forever was just a matter of saying the word. He threw himself against the glass, his eyes wide with terror. No, it's not my fault. Mr. Lee, you clearly texted me to punish the little bastard however I saw fit. I still have the evidence on my phone. Check it if you don't believe me. I only did it because I thought you abandoned him. If I had known you didn't mean that, even if you gave me 100 times the courage, a lowly construction worker like me would never dare lay a finger on the young master of the Lee family. Both of Dad's hands were shaking. Veins bulged on his forehead, forcing down his explosive rage. He squeezed out word by word. Where is my son now? I don't know. Lu Dagon trembled. He jumped off the building. But I swear I didn't succeed. It was attempted murder. That's why I only got 3 years. The young master couldn't take it and jumped on his own. It has nothing to do with me. Mr. Lee, it really isn't my fault. Dad stood up, supporting Mom, who could barely stand from crying so hard. His deadened gaze fell upon Lu Dagon, looking at him as if he were already a corpse. 3 years is far too short since you dared to touch my son. Don't even dream of getting out for the rest of your life. Terrified, Lu Dagon pressed himself against the glass, screaming and shouting frantically at my parents' retreating backs before the guards dragged him away. Right after stepping out of the police station, Mom fainted from crying. Dad had his bodyguards take her to the hospital, while he sat alone in the car for a long time. Half an hour later, his assistant rushed over, knocked on the car window, and handed in a thick stack of documents. His face was grave. Mr. Lee, you had better brace yourself. It documented a decade of bullying starting from elementary school. It was Yushu's one-sided bullying of me, actually from my earliest memories. Mom and Dad treated us fairly. Our clothes and allowances were the same. Our birthday gifts were the same. Even their love was the same. I can't even remember when their gazes toward me began to grow colder. And colder was it when Yushu shredded his own bed sheets and clothes and planted them in my closet. Was it when he got people to lock me in the school bathroom overnight, but claimed I was out messing around with delinquents? Or was it when he deliberately threw himself down the stairs right in front of me, then hid in my parents' arms, cowering and looking at me in mock terror? There were so many incidents, so many that I couldn't remember them all. I only remember that eventually Yushu was the only one left, laughing and chatting by our parents' side. During holidays, Yushu got to pick his gifts first. The favorite dishes and desserts Yushu got to eat first. Me wearing Yushu's unwanted clothes. And eating his leftovers became the natural order of things that year. In the pouring rain, clutching my perfect score, exam paper that ranked first in the grade, I ran such a high fever that I convulsed and fainted. Meanwhile, inside the warm, brightly lit house, Mom and Dad were comforting Yushu, who had scored a 10, buying him every expensive gift possible to make him happy. In the home I loved most, I became an entirely dispensable, invisible entity over the years. I endured it until it became a habit, and then gradually turned to numbness. From receiving abundant love to a portion to a tiny sliver, until finally, all I asked for was a small corner to exist in peacefully. But even such a minuscule wish ended up being shattered. They granted Yushu's birthday wish to be the only child for a year, but they completely forgot to ask what my birthday wish was. The documents in Dad's hands were slowly crushed. He bent his ever-straight back, collapsed over the steering wheel, and wept like a child who had lost his entire world. But the truth was far crueler than he could have imagined. With a conflicted expression, the assistant handed over a phone. "Mr. Lee, there is also a video." The video played. It showed Yushu typing rapidly on Dad's phone. The recipient was none other than Lu Dagon. The high-definition screen clearly captured not only the text on the phone, but also the vicious, malicious sneer on Yushu's face. "That bastardly Yufeng is all yours. Play with him however you want. Don't ever contact me again. When you're bored of him, find an excuse to take him out and kill him if you want. Just make sure he never has the chance to return to the Lee family." After hitting send, Yushu deleted the chat history and handed the phone back to Dad with a bright smile. It was incredibly quiet all around. The video on the phone looped over and over an unknown number of times. Dad's unfocused eyes finally snapped back to reality. He handed the phone back to the assistant and spoke as if nothing was wrong. "Go back for now. Today is Yushu's 18th birthday banquet. I need to hurry back and celebrate." The 18-tier birthday cake, which was originally supposed to have both mine and Yushu's names on, it had been hastily swapped for one bearing only his. Looking pleasantly surprised, Yushu linked arms with Mom and Dad, his eyes full of anticipation like an innocent child. "Mom, Dad, his brother. Really not coming back," he choked out, though he hadn't shed a single tear. Dad nodded calmly. "He's gone. From now on, you are our only son." Mom's red, swollen eyes were vacant and dead. "Let's not talk about him. Today is our precious Yushu's 18th birthday. Starting today, our baby boy is an adult. He has to be a responsible grown-up now." Cheers and congratulations echoed throughout the room. Wrapped in a bubble of bliss, Yushu happily finished eating his cake at that exact moment. The banquet hall doors swung open. Several police officers walked in and, with clear purpose, slapped a pair of silver handcuffs onto Yushu's wrists. The smile froze on his face. Seeing Mom and Dad take a step back, watching him with cold, apathetic eyes, he finally realized what was happening. The cake was knocked over, and the champagne tower shattered all over the floor. He roared with a distorted, hideous face, sobbing and screaming hysterically. In the end, he dropped to his knees and kowtowed until his forehead bled. Yet he couldn't elicit a single softened look from our parents. Once the guests had all dispersed, Mom and Dad collapsed onto the floor, clutching their heads and wailing in agony. The assistant hurried in, his face lighting up with joy. "Mr. Lee, madam, we have news of the young master. After jumping from the 5th floor, my fall was broken by a tarp below, and by some miracle I survived." The police officer in charge of my case was a woman around my mother's age. Coincidentally, she was Miss Zia's older sister. After learning what I had been through, she took me for treatment and helped me press charges. After getting Lu Dagon locked up, she happened to be transferred to the South City branch. With my consent, I transferred schools to South City and became Miss Zia's student once again. In just one short year, Miss Zia and Aunt Zia made up for the 10 years of care and love I had been missing. I didn't disappoint them. I successfully got admitted into a top-tier university. Just as I was slowly pulling myself out of the darkness and preparing to make peace with the past, Mom and Dad reappeared. They arrived looking travel-worn and exhausted, completely lacking their former glamour. In just a few days, they seemed to have aged over a decade. Miss Zia blocked them at the door, but they pleaded humbly, "Please let us see him just once, please." Not wanting to put Miss Zia in a difficult position, I agreed to meet them at the cafe downstairs. A year of healing allowed me to face them with a great deal of calm. But they were incredibly frantic. Pulling out the paternity test report, Yufeng Mom and Dad made a mistake. "Look, you really are our biological son. We know everything Yushu did. He's already been locked up. I'm sorry, son. Mom and Dad were wrong. We failed you. From now on, you are our only son. Come back with us. Let Mom and Dad make it up to you properly, okay?" Know whether it was charity or genuine remorse. I didn't need it anymore. 10 years of blatant favoritism and unjust suffering had taught me one thing. My beautiful life shouldn't be wasted on unworthy people. I didn't even glance at the report. I just smiled actually. On the night before our birthday last year, I overheard the wish Yushu made with you. I spoke as calmly, as if mentioning some trivial matter from the distant past, but their hands froze in midair. The color drained from their faces in an instant. "I turned 18 this year, and I'd like to make a birthday wish too." Mom begged in a panicked, tearful voice. "Don't say it, Yufeng. Mom is begging you, please don't say those words." Her tears made me pause for a second, but it was only a second. I told them with absolute, unshakable resolve. "I want to leave the Lee family. Not for a year, but for a lifetime." Mom clamped a hand over her mouth, letting out an agonizing, almost inhuman wail. Dad gripped his coffee cup so tightly his knuckles turned white. Pretending not to notice, I slowly stood up. "If you truly feel guilty, then please compensate me for the 10 years of birthday wishes you owe me." I pulled a bank card from my backpack and placed it on the table. "This covers the cost of raising me since birth. It's 100,000 yuan in total. Since elementary school, my allowance was 300 yuan a month. Over 10 years, that comes to 36,000. Consider the rest repayment for giving birth to me. From now on, let's cut all contact. 300 a month, how could it only be 300? They had explicitly given both sons 30,000 a month. Dad frantically called his assistant, only to find out that my personal card had been swapped out and given to Yushu ages ago. And Yushu had been using our parents' phones to transfer me a measly 300 yuan. Every month, they broke down weeping in a completely undignified manner. But it had nothing to do with me anymore. For 10 years, I had spoken up countless times, only to be met with cold stares and being called an ungrateful wretch. They had countless opportunities to investigate, but they only ever believed Yushu's words. Later, I heard that Dad's health steadily deteriorated, and the company's profits plunged. Within a few years, they declared bankruptcy. They sold their cars and their house to pay off their debts and moved to a new city. As for me, after graduation, I was hired by a major tech corporation. Thanks to my outstanding performance, I was quickly promoted to department manager. 3 years later, I married a college classmate I had known for years. We soon had an adorable son. Together, they used their love to heal my sensitive heart, making me realize that pain is eventually smoothed away by time, and even the heaviest snows will ultimately scatter in the long wind.